Marcus Reed wiped grease from his hands as he finished checking the cargo hold seals on his old freight ship. The vessel had seen better days, but she still flew between the outer colonies and Earth without too much trouble. At 32, Marcus had grown used to the quiet life of a cargo pilot. Most days he preferred the silence of space to dealing with people anyway. The comm system buzzed with an incoming priority message. Marcus frowned as he climbed into the pilot's seat. Priority messages cost a fortune to send across star systems, and nobody ever sent him anything that important. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the official seal of the Galactic Legal Authority. A stern-looking human woman in a dark suit appeared on screen. Mr. Marcus Reed of Cargo Vessel Dawn Runner. This is Attorney General Patricia Hayes of the Galactic Legal Authority. Please confirm your identity for legal proceedings. Marcus scratched his head. Yeah, that's me. What's this about? Mr. Reed, we regret to inform you of the death of Lieutenant Alexander Torres, formerly of the Earth Colonial Marines. According to our records, you served with Lieutenant Torres during the expansion conflicts from 2381 to 2383. Is this correct? The words hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. Alex Torres had been his closest friend during those bloody 2 years when humanity first tried to establish colonies beyond the solar system. They had saved each other's lives more times than either could count. After the wars ended, Alex had gone into deep space trading while Marcus stuck to safer cargo runs near Earth. Alex is dead? Marcus barely managed to say the words. I'm afraid so, Mr. Reed. Lieutenant Torres died in a mining accident on Kepler 442b 3 weeks ago. His body was recovered and given proper military honors. However, this communication concerns his last will and testament. Marcus slumped back in his chair. Alex had been the only person from the war years he had stayed in touch with, though their messages had become less frequent as the years passed. The last he had heard, Alex was making good money running rare minerals between distant worlds. Attorney General Hayes continued speaking. According to Altarian law, which governs his inheritance due to the nature of the quest, you are named as the recipient of Lieutenant Torres's most precious possession. That would be his wife, Lyra Torres, formerly Lyra Vela, the Altarian homeworld. Marcus stared at the screen in shock. I'm sorry, what did you just say? You have inherited Lieutenant Torres's wife, Mr. Reed, under Altarian marriage law, which was recognized by the Galactic Federation when Lieutenant Torres was an Altarian citizen. Marriage bonds include provisions for inheritance transfer upon death. Mrs. Torres is required by law to accept you as her new bonded partner. That's insane, Marcus said, his voice rising. You can't inherit a person. This is the 24th century, not the Dark Ages. The attorney's expression remained professional, but Marcus caught a flicker of sympathy in her eyes. I understand your reaction, Mr. Reed. However, Altarian law is very clear on this matter. The alternative for Mrs. Torres would be exile from both human space and her home world. She would become what the Altarians call void-touched, a person with no legal status in any society. Marcus ran his hands through his hair. This was beyond anything he could have imagined. What about her choice in the matter? Doesn't she get a say? Mrs. Torres has been informed of the inheritance. She is currently traveling to Earth aboard a Federation transport vessel. She will arrive at your location in 72 hours. The legal documents are being transmitted to your ship's computer now. The screen went blank, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts. He had not seen or spoken to Alex in over 2 years. Their last message exchange had been brief updates about their work. Alex had mentioned being married, but Marcus had assumed it was to another human colonist. The idea that his friend had married an alien seemed impossible. Marcus activated his ship's database and pulled up what information he could find about Altarians. The species had joined the Galactic Federation 50 years before humans made first contact. Their home world was twice Earth's size with gravity that would crush most humans. Altarians were tall, powerfully built beings with blue-tinted skin and natural telepathic abilities. They lived for centuries and had technology that made human engineering look primitive. Most importantly, Altarians viewed themselves as superior to most other species in the galaxy. They rarely interacted with humans beyond formal diplomatic contacts. The idea that one would marry a human seemed almost unbelievable. 3 days later, Marcus stood in the docking bay of Luna Station, watching a Federation transport ship settle onto the landing pad. His stomach churned with nervous energy. How do you greet someone you've inherited like a piece of property? What do you say to a grieving widow who's been forced into the situation? The transport's airlock opened and passengers began disembarking. Marcus spotted her immediately. Lyra Torres was unlike any being he had ever seen. She stood nearly 7 feet tall with flawless blue skin that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. Intricate silver markings ran along her arms and neck in patterns that seemed to shift as she moved. Her hair was pure white and fell to her shoulders like liquid starlight. But what struck Marcus most were her eyes. They were a deep violet color and held a sadness that seemed to go right through him. This was a woman in mourning for the husband she had lost. Lyra walked toward him carrying a single travel case. She moved with perfect balance and grace despite the lower gravity of the station. When she reached Marcus, she stopped and studied his face with those incredible eyes. "You are Marcus Reed," she said. Her voice had a musical quality, but there was no warmth in it. "Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry for your loss. Alex was a good man and a great friend." Lyra's expression didn't change. "Alexander spoke of you often. He said you saved his life during the war with the Vex Empire." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "He saved mine too, more than once. I am Lyra, formerly bonded Alexander Torres, now bonded to you by law and custom. I do not choose this arrangement, but I will honor it until I find a way to dissolve it legally." Her words stung more than Marcus expected. He had hoped they might at least be civil to each other. "Look, I didn't ask for this either. I don't believe people can be inherited like property. We'll figure out a way to get you out of the situation." For the first time, something flickered across Lyra's face. Surprise, maybe, or confusion. "You do not wish to claim your inheritance?" "I don't want to own anybody," Marcus said firmly. "You're a person, not a thing. Whatever the law says, I won't treat you like property." Lyra stared at him for a long moment. "You're either very wise or very foolish, Marcus Reed. I am not yet certain which." The trip back to Earth was awkward and quiet. Marcus had given Lyra his small cabin while he slept in the pilot's chair. She spent most of the journey in private, though he sometimes heard her speaking in what he assumed was her native language. He wondered if she was communicating with family on her home world. When they reached Earth orbit, Marcus contacted the spaceport to arrange temporary housing. His own apartment was barely large enough for one person, let alone someone of Lyra's size. But Lyra overheard his conversation and interrupted. "I will stay in your dwelling," she said. "Altarian custom requires that bonded pairs share living space. I will not give others reason to question the validity of our arrangement." Marcus wanted to argue, but something in her tone warned him not to push. Maybe she was trying to protect them both from legal complications. His apartment in New Angeles was going to be very crowded with two people, especially when one of them was 7 feet tall. The apartment was exactly as cramped as Marcus had feared. Lyra had to duck under the doorframe, and her head nearly brushed the ceiling. She looked around the small space with what might have been disdain or just disappointment. After living with Alex, who had apparently been quite successful, this modest pilot's quarters must seem primitive. "The sleeping area is through there," Marcus said, pointing to his bedroom. "I'll take the couch." "That is not necessary," Lyra replied coldly. "Altarians require less sleep than humans. I will meditate during your rest periods." Marcus nodded and showed her where to find food and how to operate the basic appliances. Everything in his apartment was cheap and simple compared to what she was probably used to. Lyra examined each item with the careful attention of someone cataloging the capabilities of an alien technology. That first evening they sat in silence, eating a meal Marcus had prepared from his limited supplies. He kept glancing at Lyra, trying to understand what she was thinking. Her face revealed nothing, but he caught her studying him as well when she thought he wasn't looking. Finally, Marcus couldn't stand the quiet anymore. "Tell me about Alex. What was he like as a husband?" Pain flashed across Lyra's features, so quickly Marcus almost missed it. "Alexander was honorable. He treated me as an equal despite the differences in our species. He learned our customs and I learned his. We built something good together." "How did you meet him?" He came to our world seeking rare crystals for his trading business. Most humans would have tried to cheat us or shown fear of our abilities. Alexander showed respect. He took time to understand our ways. Lyra paused, her violet eyes distant with memory. He was the first human I met who did not see me as either a curiosity or a threat. Marcus felt a stab of guilt. Wasn't that exactly how he was seeing her? As some exotic alien thrust into his ordinary life? I'm sorry you lost him. And I'm sorry you're stuck with me instead. Lyra turned those piercing eyes on him. You apologize frequently, Marcus Reed. In Altarian culture, excessive apology suggests either guilt or weakness, which applies to you. The question caught him off guard. Neither, I hope. I just think this whole situation is unfair to you. Life is often unfair. What matters is how we respond to unfairness. Lyra stood and moved to the small window that looked out over the city. I will make the best of this arrangement until I can change it. That is all either of us can do. With that, she retreated to the bedroom, leaving Marcus alone on his couch. As he lay there trying to sleep, he wondered what Alex had been thinking when he wrote that will. Had he really believed forcing Lyra into another marriage would protect her? Or had there been something else? Some plan that Marcus couldn't see yet? Outside his window, the lights of New Angeles twinkled like stars. Somewhere among those lights, other humans were living normal lives, unaware that the galaxy was full of species with customs and laws that could turn a simple inheritance into something that would change everything. Marcus closed his eyes and tried not to think about the beautiful, grieving alien woman sleeping in his bed, or the fact that according to the law of two worlds, she now belonged to him whether either of them wanted it or not. The first week living with Lyra was like sharing space with a beautiful storm cloud. She moved through Marcus's small apartment with fluid grace, but radiated a cold distance that made every interaction feel formal and strained. Marcus tried to give her privacy and space, sleeping on his uncomfortable couch while she used his bedroom. He bought extra food and made sure she had everything she needed but never demanded anything in return. This seemed to confuse Lyra more than anything else. Marcus would catch her watching him with those violet eyes, her expression unreadable. Sometimes he thought she was about to say something, but then she would turn away and retreat back into silence. On the 8th day, Marcus had to make a cargo run to the Mars orbital station. It was a routine job hauling medical supplies, and he expected to be back within 48 hours. He told Lyra she was welcome to explore the city or contact anyone she wanted while he was gone. I will remain here, she said simply. You don't have to stay locked up in the apartment. You're not a prisoner. Lyra's eyes flashed with something that might have been anger. Among my people, when a male shows such weakness, it indicates he does not value what he's been given. Do you find me so undesirable that you cannot bear my presence? Marcus stared at her in shock. That's not what I meant at all. I was trying to be respectful. Respect is earned through strength, not through avoiding conflict, Lyra said coldly. Alexander understood this. The comparison to Alex stung, but Marcus pushed down his irritation. I'm not Alex. I'm just trying to make the best of a situation neither of us chose. When Marcus returned from Mars 2 days later, he found his apartment transformed. His old cargo hauler's toolkit had been completely reorganized with tools he didn't recognize. His ship's navigation computer had been upgraded with systems that looked decades ahead of anything human engineers had developed. Most shocking of all, his monthly fuel and maintenance costs had somehow been reduced to almost nothing. Lyra was sitting at a small kitchen table reading from a holographic display that showed text in flowing alien script. She looked up when he entered, but her expression remained neutral. What did you do to my ship? Marcus asked. I made improvements. Your human technology is inefficient and wasteful. The modifications will increase your cargo capacity by 30% and reduce your operating costs by half. Marcus felt a mix of gratitude and unease. Thank you, but you didn't need to do that. It was necessary. If we are to maintain this arrangement, I cannot live in poverty. Your income was barely sufficient for one person. The casual dismissal of his livelihood rankled Marcus, but he tried to stay calm. I make enough to get by. Getting by is not living, Lyra replied. Alexander earned enough to provide comfort and security. He took pride in his success. Marcus sat down across from her at the table. Is that what you expect from me? To be like Alex? For the first time since arriving, Lyra's composed mask slipped slightly. Pain flickered across her features before she regained control. I expect nothing from you, Marcus Reed. I am simply trying to survive until I can find a way to return to my people. Over the following weeks, Marcus discovered just how dramatically Lyra's modifications had improved his cargo hauler. Routes that used to take days now took hours. His ship could carry loads that would have been impossible before, while using a fraction of the fuel. Other pilots at the spaceports began asking questions about his sudden efficiency improvements. Marcus found himself earning more money in a month than he used to make in 3. The work was easier, too, thanks to Lyra's upgrades to his navigation and cargo handling systems. But the success felt hollow because it came from technology he didn't understand and couldn't have developed himself. One evening, as Marcus was reviewing his surprisingly healthy financial accounts, Lyra emerged in the bedroom where she spent most of her time. She had changed out of the simple human clothes she usually wore into something that looked like it was made from liquid silver. The garment seemed to shift and flow around her blue skin like mercury. I have received communication from my clan, she said without preamble. Marcus looked up from his datapad. Good news, I hope? They demand my immediate return to our home world. They consider my presence here a contamination that brings shame to our family line. What did you tell them? Lyra's jaw tightened. I explained the legal requirements of the inheritance bond. They care nothing for human or Federation law. They say if I do not return within 1 month, they will declare me dead to the clan. Marcus felt a surge of anger on her behalf. That's ridiculous. You're following the law. Law means nothing to those who see themselves as above it, Lyra said bitterly. My people believe we are superior to all other species in the galaxy. The idea that one of us could be bound to a human is seen as an abomination. What will you do? Lyra was quiet for a long moment. I do not know. If I return home, without dissolving this bond, they may exile me anyway. If I stay here, I become clanless, which is a kind of death among my people. Marcus wished he knew how to help her, but the complexities of alien politics were beyond his understanding. Maybe there's a legal solution we haven't found yet. Perhaps, Lyra said, but her tone suggested she didn't believe it. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the impossible situation Lyra was trapped in. She had lost her husband, been forced into an unwanted marriage, and now faced rejection from her own people. No one deserved that kind of suffering. He was still awake when he heard soft sounds coming from the bedroom. At first he thought Lyra might be making a communication call, but then he recognized the rhythm. She was crying, trying to muffle the sound, but unable to completely contain her grief. Marcus lay on his couch listening to her pain and feeling helpless. Every instinct told him to go comfort her, but he knew she would see that as weakness or pity. According to what she had told him about Altarian culture, showing such emotion was probably considered shameful. The next morning, Lyra emerged from the bedroom, looking perfectly composed as always. Marcus made breakfast for both of them, and they ate in their usual silence. But something had changed in the night. The wall between them felt less solid somehow. Tell me about Alex, Marcus said suddenly. How did he die? Lyra's fork paused halfway to her mouth. The mining accident? I mean, really tell me. What happened? She set down her fork and stared at her plate. Alexander was investigating reports of rare crystals in an abandoned mine on Kepler 442b. The local authorities said it was safe, but the tunnel structure was unstable. When it collapsed, he was trapped inside for 6 hours before rescue teams could reach him. That doesn't sound like Alex. He was always careful about dangerous situations. He was careful, Lyra agreed, but he was also driven to succeed. He wanted to earn enough money to buy property on one of the garden worlds where we could live safely together. Mixed couples face discrimination in many human colonies. Marcus felt a stab of shame. He had never thought about the challenges Alex and Lyra must have faced as an interspecies couple. Did he suffer? Lyra's composure cracked slightly. The medical report said he died quickly, but I felt his fear through our bond before it was severed. He was afraid for me, not for himself. His last thoughts were worry about what would happen to me alone. The inheritance clause was his way of protecting you. Yes, Alexander researched the laws carefully. He knew that if something happened to him, I would need legal protection from both our peoples. He chose you because he trusted you above all others. Marcus felt the weight of that trust settling on his shoulders. I don't know how to live up to that. Alexander often spoke of your service together during the war. He said you had a gift for finding solutions when situations seemed hopeless. He called it the human way of thinking. What did he mean by that? Lyra seemed to consider her words carefully. Most species in the galaxy approach problems through strength or technology or natural advantages. Humans use something different. You adapt and improvise in ways that surprise everyone, including yourselves. Before Marcus could respond, his apartment's communication system chimed with an incoming message. The holographic display showed the worried face of Captain Rodriguez from the Colonial Shipping Authority. Marcus, we got a problem. 3 of our cargo convoys have been hit by Vex raiders in the past week. They're targeting the shipping lanes between Mars and the outer colonies. We need all available pilots for escort duty. Marcus's blood went cold. The Vex Empire had been humanity's first and most violent contact with hostile aliens. Their raids had triggered the expansion wars that claimed so many lives, including many of Marcus's friends. If they were attacking again, it meant serious trouble. When do you need me? Marcus asked. Tomorrow morning. But Marcus, this isn't a cargo run. This is combat escort duty. Your ship isn't equipped for that kind of work. Marcus glanced at Lyra, who had been listening to the conversation with growing intensity. Her violet eyes seemed to glow with inner fire, and her silver markings were shifting in patterns he had never seen before. My ship has been modified, Marcus said. I think we can handle escort duty. After the call ended, Lyra stood and began pacing the small apartment like a caged predator. The Vex are moving against your people again. This is not random raiding. You know about the Vex? Every species in the galaxy knows about them. They are destroyers who take what they want and leave nothing behind. If they are targeting human shipping, it means they see weakness to exploit. Marcus watched her pace and realized something had changed in her demeanor. The grief and resignation were still there, but underneath he saw something else. Battle readiness. The instincts of a warrior culture coming to the surface. Will you help me? He asked. Lyra stopped pacing and fixed him with that intense stare. You would trust me in combat? An alien who's been forced upon you. Alex trusted you enough to marry you. That's good enough for me. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Lyra smiled. It was a fierce expression that showed teeth and made her eyes blaze with inner light. Then perhaps there is hope for both of us after all. The next morning, Marcus arrived at the Colonial Shipping Authority headquarters to find chaos. Pilots, security officers, and Federation representatives filled the briefing room, all talking at once. Captain Rodriguez stood at the front trying to maintain order, while holographic displays showed attack patterns and shipping route maps. Marcus found a seat near the back just as Lyra entered the room. Every conversation stopped as the 7-foot-tall Altarian moved through the crowd. Her blue skin seemed to shimmer under the harsh lights, and her silver markings were shifting in slow patterns that Marcus was beginning to recognize as signs of alertness. Is that your alien wife? Whispered Jake Morrison, another cargo pilot Marcus knew from the shipping runs. Her name is Lyra, Marcus said firmly. Captain Rodriguez called for attention, and the room gradually quieted. People, we have a serious situation. The Vex aren't just raiding our shipping lanes anymore. Intelligence suggests they're testing our defenses for a larger operation. The holographic display showed the locations of the recent attacks. 3 cargo convoys have been completely destroyed with no survivors. The attack pattern formed a rough triangle around the main shipping route between Earth and the Mars colonies. What do they want? Asked one of the pilots. What they've always wanted, Rodriguez replied grimly. To drive humanity out of space and claim our territory for themselves. The difference is now they think we're weak enough to push around. A Federation intelligence officer stepped forward. Commander Sarah Chun was a small woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for getting results. The attacks show sophisticated planning. The Vex are using new ship designs we haven't seen before. They're faster and better armed than their old raiders. Marcus raised his hand. What kind of escort protection are we talking about? Most of our ships aren't built for combat. That's the problem, Chen admitted. We need every available vessel, but most civilian ships won't survive a direct engagement with Vex raiders. That's why we're asking for volunteers only. Marcus glanced at Lyra, who was studying the tactical displays with intense focus. Her violet eyes seemed to be tracking patterns that others might miss. When she noticed his look, she gave a slight nod. "We'll do it," Marcus said. Several pilots around the room muttered about the insanity of taking a cargo hauler into combat. Butchin looked interested. "Mr. Reed, our records show your ship has been significantly modified recently. Can you elaborate?" Marcus felt dozens of eyes turned toward Lyra. "My wife upgraded some of our systems. We should be able to handle escort duty." "What kind of upgrades?" Shun pressed. Lyra spoke for the first time since entering the room. Her musical voice carried easily across the space. "Enhanced engines, improved shielding, upgraded sensors, and adaptive weapon mounting points. The vessel is now capable of combat operations." The room erupted in surprised chatter. Adaptive weapon mounting was military-grade technology that most civilian pilots had never even seen. Chen's eyebrows rose nearly to her hairline. "Mrs. Reed, what's your background in ship modification?" "I am Altarian," Lyra said simply, as if that explained everything. Chen nodded slowly. Among the various alien species in the Federation, Altarians had a reputation for technological superiority. "Would you be willing to serve as technical advisor for this operation?" "I will serve alongside my husband," Lyra replied. 2 hours later, Marcus and Lyra were aboard the Dawn Runner, making final preparations for departure. The cargo hold had been cleared and temporary weapon systems installed at the mounting points Lyra had somehow integrated into the ship's structure. Marcus still didn't understand how she had made such extensive modifications without him noticing. "The weapons are functional but limited," Lyra explained as she ran diagnostics from the co-pilot station. "This vessel was not designed for sustained combat. We must rely on speed and maneuverability." Marcus checked the escort formation coordinates. They would be protecting a supply convoy carrying medical equipment and food to the outer colonies. 5 cargo ships with 2 military escorts and now 3 volunteer civilian vessels, including his own. "Lyra, I need to ask you something," Marcus said as they prepared for launch. "Speak. When you were married to Alex, did you ever see combat together?" Lyra's hands paused over the control panel. "Alexander preferred to avoid conflict when possible. He said humans were better at finding peaceful solutions than fighting." "That's not what I asked." She turned to look at him with those piercing violet eyes. "We encountered pirates twice and Vex raiders once. Alexander was skilled in combat, but he did not enjoy it. He fought only when necessary to protect what mattered to him." "And you?" "I am Altarian. Combat is part of our nature. We train from childhood to defend our families and territories. But I had never fought alongside a human before Alexander." Marcus felt a flutter of nervousness as they launched from Earth orbit. He was a competent pilot, but he had never considered himself a warrior. During the expansion wars, he had been a transport pilot, moving supplies and wounded soldiers rather than engaging the enemy directly. The convoy formed up in standard escort formation with the military ships taking point positions. Marcus positioned the Dawn Runner on the starboard flank, where he could cover 3 of the cargo vessels. The other volunteer ships spread out to complete the protective envelope. For the first 6 hours of the journey, everything proceeded normally. The convoy made good time toward the first way station, and the long-range sensors showed no signs of hostile activity. Marcus began to think maybe the Vex had moved on to easier targets. Then Lyra stiffened in her seat, and her silver markings began pulsing rapidly. "Contact," she said sharply. Multiple vessels approaching from behind the third moon. Marcus checked his sensors but saw nothing. "I'm not picking up anything. Human sensors are limited. Trust me." Lyra's hands flew over a control panel, activating systems Marcus didn't recognize. 6 Vex raiders, new class, approaching at high speed. The convoy's communication channels exploded with chatter as the military escorts confirmed Lyra's warning. Their more advanced sensors had finally detected the approaching threat, but precious minutes had been lost. All escort vessels' defensive positions. Came the order from the lead military ship. Cargo vessels, maintain formation and prepare for emergency jump if necessary. The Vex raiders emerged from behind the moon like hunting wolves. Their ships were sleek and predatory-looking, much different from the bulky raiders Marcus remembered from the war years. These new vessels moved with deadly grace and were clearly built for speed and firepower. The first exchange of weapons fire lit up the darkness of space. The military escorts engaged the lead raiders while Marcus tried to position his ship to protect the cargo vessels. But the Vex had learned new tactics. Instead of the straightforward assault he expected, they split into pairs and began weaving through the convoy formation. "They're trying to separate us," Marcus realized. "Agreed," Lyra said, her fingers dancing over controls Marcus had never seen before. "The cargo ships are the primary targets, but they want to eliminate the escorts first." One of the other volunteer escort ships took a direct hit and exploded in a ball of superheated plasma. The pilot never had time to send a distress signal. Marcus felt his throat go dry as he realized how outmatched they were. "Marcus," Lyra said urgently, "I need you to trust me completely. Can you do that?" He looked at her calm, focused expression and made his choice. "Tell me what you need. Give me full control of the weapons and defensive systems. You handle navigation and evasive maneuvers. Follow my instructions exactly without question." Marcus transferred control authority to her station. "Done." "Execute attack pattern Altarian 7, Lyra said, then caught herself. "I apologize. That means nothing to you. Turn hard to port and accelerate toward the nearest raider. When I say fire, give me maximum engine power in reverse." This sounded like suicide, but Marcus had committed to trusting her. He swung the Dawn Runner around and accelerated directly toward a Vex raider that was harassing one of the cargo ships. The alien vessel immediately turned to engage them, obviously expecting an easy kill against a modified cargo hauler. "Steady," Lyra murmured, her violet eyes locked on the tactical display. "Steady?" The Vex raider opened fire with plasma cannons that would vaporize Marcus's ship before Lyra's modifications. Instead, the enhanced shields absorbed most of the damage, while Lyra made minute adjustments to their course. "Now!" she said sharply. Marcus reversed engines at full power just as Lyra fired their weapons. The sudden deceleration threw him against his restraints, but it also caused the Vex raider to overshoot its target. Lyra's perfectly timed shot caught the enemy ship in its vulnerable rear section, crippling its engines. "Impressive," Lyra said with satisfaction. Again, but this time turned starboard after firing. The next 20 minutes were the most terrifying and exhilarating of Marcus's life. Under Lyra's guidance, he flew the Dawn Runner through combat maneuvers he would never have attempted alone. She seemed to anticipate every enemy movement while coordinating their attacks with mechanical precision. Working together, they disabled 2 more Vex raiders and provided crucial support to the military escorts. The remaining enemy ships finally retreated when it became clear they couldn't break through the convoy's defenses. As the adrenaline faded, Marcus realized something had changed between him and Lyra. During the battle, they had functioned as a perfect team, each understanding the other's capabilities and limitations. For the first time since she had arrived on Earth, the distance between them had disappeared completely. "That was incredible," Marcus said, turning to face her. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" Lyra's markings were still shifting in rapid patterns that Marcus now recognized as signs of excitement rather than stress. All Altarians train in combat from childhood, but fighting alongside humans requires different tactics. Alexander taught me that human unpredictability can be a weapon in itself. Is that what we just did? Act unpredictable? Among other things, Vex raiders expect their enemies to follow logical tactical patterns. Humans do not always act logically, which makes them dangerous opponents. Marcus laughed despite the stress of the situation. "Are you saying we won because we're crazy?" "Not crazy," Lyra corrected with something that might have been amusement in her voice. "Creative. It is a valuable trait in both combat and life." The convoy reached the way station without further incident, but the mood among the crews was somber. They had won this engagement, but barely, and only because the Vex had underestimated their opposition. Next time the enemy would be better prepared. As Marcus docked the Dawn Runner, he realized the battle had proven something important to both him and Lyra. They could work together as equals, each bringing different strengths to their partnership. For the first time since she had arrived, Marcus began to think their situation might be more than just a legal obligation they both had to endure. The celebration at the way station was brief and subdued. While the convoy had survived the Vex attack, everyone understood they had been lucky rather than superior. The enemy would adapt their tactics and return with better preparation. Commander Chin called an emergency meeting with all escort crews to discuss the next phase of the mission. Marcus and Lyra sat together in the station's briefing room, and Marcus noticed how the other pilots looked at them differently now. The successful combat engagement had earned them respect that went beyond curiosity about their unusual marriage. Several crews had specifically thanked them for the tactical support that had saved lives. The intelligence reports are troubling, Chin began, displaying a holographic map of the outer colonies. Vex activity has increased across multiple sectors. This wasn't an isolated raid. They're probing our defenses systematically. Captain Rodriguez pointed to several red markers on the display. These are confirmed attack sites from the past month. The pattern suggests they're looking for weak points in our shipping network. "What's our destination status?" asked one of the military escort commanders. Colony Station 7 reports normal operations, but they're requesting priority delivery of the medical supplies. They've had an outbreak of Rigel fever that's spreading through the civilian population. Marcus studied the route projection and felt his stomach clench. The path to Colony Station 7 led to the Kepler system, where Alex had died in that mining accident. He glanced at Lyra and saw her violet eyes fixed on the same display with an unreadable expression. "The next leg of the journey takes us through some of the most remote shipping lanes," Chin continued. "If the Vex are planning a major assault, this would be an ideal location. We'll be hours away from any backup." After the briefing, Marcus and Lyra returned to their ship to prepare for departure. The Dawn Runner had taken some damage during the fight, but nothing that couldn't be repaired. As they worked on the weapon systems together, Marcus found himself stealing glances at Lyra. The combat had revealed a side of her he hadn't seen before, confident, decisive, and completely competent under pressure. "You fought well today," Lyra said, without looking up from the shield generator she was adjusting. "I just followed your instructions. You're the one who knew what to do. Strategy is only effective with proper execution. You trusted me when logic suggested you should not. That requires courage." Marcus felt warmth spread through his chest at the praise. "In the war, Alex and I learned to trust each other completely. I guess some of that carried over." Lyra's hand stilled on the equipment. "Alexander spoke of you often during our marriage. He said you saved his life more than once." "He saved mine, too. We looked out for each other." "Tell me about the time he mentioned most frequently." "The incident at Proxima Station." Marcus set down his tools and leaned against the bulkhead. He hadn't talked about Proxima Station in years, but something in Lyra's voice suggested this was important to her. "We were evacuating civilians when the Vex broke through our defensive line. Alex's transport was damaged and going down in hostile territory. I was supposed to stay with the main convoy, but I went after him instead." "You disobeyed orders." "Yeah, and nearly got court-martialed for it. But I couldn't leave him behind." Lyra turned to face him fully. "What happened?" "I found his transport crashed in a canyon with Vex ground forces closing in. Alex was trapped in the wreckage with a broken leg. The smart thing would have been to call for backup and wait for a proper rescue team. But you did not do the smart thing." Marcus smiled at the memory despite its terror. "I jury-rigged an explosive device from spare parts and caused a landslide that blocked the canyon entrance. Then I spent 6 hours digging Alex out of the wreckage by hand. By the time rescue arrived, we had cleared a defensive position and were holding off the Vex with salvage weapons. Alexander said you refused to leave him even when the situation became hopeless. That's what friends do. You don't abandon people you care about." Lyra was quiet for a long moment, her violet eyes studying his face with that intense focus he was learning to recognize. "Among my people, such loyalty is rare. We value strength and independence above emotional bonds." But Alexander taught me that human loyalty can be a form of strength. Is that why you helped me today? Loyalty to Alex's memory. At first, perhaps, but you have proven yourself worthy of loyalty in your own right. The words hit Marcus harder than he expected. Since Lyra's arrival, he had felt like a poor substitute for the husband she had lost. Hearing that she saw value in him as himself rather than as Alex's replacement meant more than he could express. They launched from the way station the next morning with full cargo holds and repairs completed. The journey to Colony Station 7 would take 3 days through increasingly remote space. The convoy maintained tight formation, but everyone remained on high alert for Vex activity. On the second day, they passed through the Kepler system where Alex had died. Marcus watched Lyra carefully during this portion of the journey, but her expression remained composed. Only the rapid shifting of her silver markings betrayed any internal tension. "Do you want to talk about it?" Marcus asked during their rest period. "There is nothing to discuss. Alexander is dead. Grief serves no purpose." But Marcus could see the pain she was trying to hide. That night, as they traveled through the darkness between stars, he heard the soft sounds of Altarian morning songs coming from her quarters. The melody was hauntingly beautiful and filled with a sadness that made his chest ache. The Vex attacked on the third day, just as the convoy entered the outer system around Colony Station 7. This time, there were 12 enemy ships using coordinated pack tactics that showed they had learned from the previous engagement. The assault came from multiple directions simultaneously, designed to overwhelm the escort defenses. All ships scatter Formation Bravo. Commander Chen ordered over the communication channels. Protect the cargo vessels at all costs. Marcus threw the Dawn Runner into evasive maneuvers as plasma fire erupted around them. The Vex had brought heavier ships this time, including what looked like a command vessel that stayed back from the main battle while coordinating the attack. "They're trying to disable rather than destroy," Lyra observed as she tracked the enemy movements. "They want to capture the medical supplies." "Why would they do that?" "Intelligence gathering. If they can analyze human medical technology, they might develop biological weapons specifically designed to target your species." The thought sent chills down Marcus's spine. The convoy was carrying enough medical equipment to treat thousands of colonists. In Vex hands, it could become the foundation for genocide. "We can't let them take those ships," Marcus said. "Agreed, but the military escorts are outnumbered. We need a different approach." Lyra's fingers flew over her control panel, accessing systems Marcus still didn't fully understand. Her violet eyes blazed with concentration as she analyzed the battle flow. "The command ship is the key," she said finally. "Remove it, and the others will lose coordination. That ship is twice our size and staying well out of range." "Not out of range. Out of apparent range. Marcus, I need you to trust me again, but this will be more dangerous than before." Marcus looked at the tactical display, showing their tiny ship against a massive Vex command vessel. Every rational instinct told him this was suicide, but he had learned to trust Lyra's judgment in combat. "What do you need me to do?" "Fly directly toward the command ship. Maximum speed, no evasive maneuvers. When I give the order, shut down all power except life support. That will make us a sitting target. It will make us appear disabled. The Vex will want to capture rather than destroy a ship they think is helpless." Marcus took a deep breath and pointed the Dawn Runner toward the enemy command vessel. As they accelerated away from the main battle, the Vex fighters moved to intercept them. Lyra's weapons kept them at bay, but Marcus could see their attack was drawing attention from the command ship. "Steady," Lyra murmured. "Maintain course no matter what happens." Plasma bolts streaked past them as they closed distance with the command ship. Marcus's hands were slick with sweat as he fought every pilot instinct that screamed at him to take evasive action. The enemy vessel grew larger in their forward display until it filled their entire view. "Now," Lyra said sharply. Marcus shut down all ship systems except minimal life support. The Dawn Runner went dark and began tumbling as if critically damaged. On the Vex command ship's displays, they would appear to be a crippled vessel drifting helplessly toward them. "What now?" Marcus whispered. "Now we wait for them to make the mistake of bringing us aboard." The tractor beam from the command ship locked onto their hull, and began pulling them toward a docking bay. Marcus could see Vex crew members preparing to board and capture them. His heart hammered against his ribs as they were drawn inexorably into the belly of the enemy ship. "Lyra, please tell me you have a plan." She turned to him with that fierce smile he was learning to love. "I have a plan. But first you must promise me something." "What?" "If we survive this, you will stop trying to dissolve our marriage bond." Marcus stared at her in shock. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that I no longer wish to be free of you, Marcus Reed. You have shown me what Alexander saw in humans. You are brave and loyal and adaptable in ways my people cannot understand. I choose you freely, not because law requires it." The docking clamps engaged a metallic thud that echoed through their ship. In moments, Vex soldiers would breach their airlock, and everything would depend on Lyra's mysterious plan. But Marcus found himself smiling despite the mortal danger. "I promise," he said, "if we live through this, I'll stop trying to get rid of you." "Good," Lyra said, her markings blazing with battle light, "because I have grown quite fond of the human way of doing impossible things." The Vex boarding party cut through the Dawn Runner's airlock with plasma torches, while Marcus and Lyra waited in the cargo hold. Lyra had given him a small device that she said would translate the Vex language and told him to stay silent no matter what happened. Her plan, she explained, depended on the Vex believing they had captured helpless prisoners. Heavy footsteps echoed through the ship as armored Vex soldiers searched for survivors. Marcus had never seen a Vex up close before, and their appearance was more terrifying than he remembered from military briefings. They stood nearly 8 feet tall with gray, scaled skin and 6 arms that ended in razor-sharp claws. Their eyes glowed red in faces that looked like nightmares made flesh. "2 live ones in here," one soldier reported in a harsh voice that the translator rendered into choppy English. "Human male, unknown female species. Bring them to the interrogation chamber," came a reply from their leader. "Command wants information about human shipping routes." Marcus and Lyra were dragged through corridors that reeked of ozone and something that might have been rotting meat. The Vex command ship was larger than Marcus had realized, with hundreds of crew members moving through passages that seemed designed for creatures much bigger than humans. Everything was built on a scale that made him feel like an insect. The interrogation chamber was a stark metal room with restraint devices clearly designed for torture. Marcus felt his courage begin to falter as they were strapped into chairs that adjusted automatically to hold them immobile. Whatever Lyra's plan was, she better execute it soon. A Vex officer entered the room wearing elaborate armor that marked him as high-ranking. His red eyes fixed on Lyra with obvious interest, while he ignored Marcus completely. "You are not human," the officer said in accented English. "Your biosignature is unknown to our databases." Lyra lifted her head with regal dignity, despite being chained to a torture device. "I am Altarian." The Vex officer's eyes widened with something that might have been excitement. "Altarian! We have heard of your species, but never captured one for study. Your people are said to possess advanced telepathic abilities." "We do." "Excellent. You will provide us with detailed information about human military capabilities and shipping routes. Your telepathic gifts will ensure we know if you attempt to lie." Lyra's silver markings began to pulse in slow rhythms that Marcus had never seen before. "I will tell you what you wish to know." Marcus stared at her in horror. Was she really going to betray humanity to save their lives? But then he noticed something the Vex officer had missed. The pulsing of her markings was following a specific pattern, almost like a countdown. "The human convoy you attacked carries medical supplies to Colony Station 7, Lyra said, her voice taking on an odd resonant quality. "The station has a population of 50,000 colonists who are suffering from a plague outbreak." "We care nothing for human suffering," the officer replied. "Tell us about their military defenses." "The escort vessels carry standard Federation weaponry with limited ammunition. They cannot sustain prolonged combat against superior numbers." Marcus realized what was happening. Lyra wasn't betraying anyone. She was using her telepathic abilities to probe the Vex officer's mind while appearing to cooperate. Her markings continued their countdown pattern, and Marcus prepared himself for whatever was coming. How many ships guard the main shipping routes between Earth and the outer colonies? The officer demanded. Fewer than you might expect, Lyra said, her voice growing stronger. Humanity spreads its forces thin because they lack the resources for proper defense. The Vex officer leaned closer, his red eyes gleaming with anticipation. And the location of their primary military bases? Lyra's markings flashed brilliant silver, and her voice changed completely. You will never know, because your ship is about to be destroyed. The Vex officer jerked back in alarm just as every light in the interrogation chamber went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in hellish red illumination. Alarm sirens wailed throughout the ship, while Vex voices shouted in panic over the communication system. What did you do? Marcus whispered as their restraints suddenly released. I accessed their computer systems through the officer's cybernetic implants, Lyra said, standing and stretching muscles that should have been crammed from the restraints. Vex neural interfaces are surprisingly vulnerable to telepathic intrusion. You can hack computers with your mind, among other things. I have also disabled their weapons, engines, and life support systems. We should leave quickly before they realize what happened. They made their way through corridors filled with confused and panicking Vex soldiers. Lyra moved with absolute confidence, while Marcus tried to look like he knew where they were going. Her telepathic abilities seemed to be guiding them around the worst of the chaos. The docking bay is this way, she said, pointing down a passage that looked identical to all the others. Our ship should still be functional. What about the rest of the convoy? The Vex attack fleet is experiencing similar system failures. Without coordination from the command ship, they will be forced to retreat or face destruction by the Federation escorts. They reached the docking bay to find it in complete disorder. Vex technicians were trying desperately to restore power, while others prepared smaller ships for evacuation. In the confusion, nobody paid attention to two prisoners making their way toward a captured human vessel. The Dawn Runner systems came online as soon as they reached the bridge. Lyra had apparently programmed their ship to remain functional, while everything else on the Vex command vessel failed. Marcus initiated launch procedures while she monitored the tactical situation. The Vex fleet is retreating, she reported with satisfaction. Several of their ships are completely disabled, and the others are too damaged to continue fighting. Marcus guided their ship out of the enemy docking bay and back toward the convoy. Through the forward viewport, he could see the Federation escorts regrouping around the cargo vessels. The battle was over and humanity had won decisively. How did you learn to do that? Marcus asked as they rejoined the convoy formation. Telepathic warfare is taught to all Altarian children, but I had never attempted it against Vex technology before. Their cybernetic implants made them vulnerable in ways they did not anticipate. You could have told me the plan beforehand. Lyra turned to him with that fierce smile. Would you have believed it possible? Marcus considered this and realized she was probably right. The idea of hacking enemy computers through telepathic contact seemed impossible even by the standards of advanced alien technology. Probably not. Humans have a saying about forgiveness and permission that Alexander taught me. Sometimes it is easier to act first and explain later. The convoy reached Colony Station 7 without further incident, and the medical supplies were delivered to the grateful colonists. News of successful defense against the Vex spread quickly through Federation space, and Marcus found himself being interviewed by reporters who wanted to know how a simple cargo pilot had helped defeat a superior enemy force. He gave credit to Lyra and the other convoy members while downplaying his own role. But the attention brought unwelcome scrutiny from both human and Altarian authorities. Within days of their return to Earth, they received summons to appear before a joint Federation tribunal. They want to question the validity of our marriage, Lyra explained after reviewing the legal documents. Both our peoples are concerned about unauthorized technology transfer and political implications. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest. After everything we've been through, they still want to tear us apart? They see our partnership as a threat to established order. Humans fear losing access to superior technology, while Altarians worry about contamination of genetic purity. What do we do? Lyra took his hands in hers, her blue skin warm against his palms. We fight for our right to choose our own destiny. Neither of our peoples own us, no matter what their laws claim. The tribunal hearing was held in the Federation's Grand Assembly Chamber on Luna Station. Representatives from dozens of species filled the gallery, while judges from the major powers presided over proceedings. Marcus had never felt smaller or more out of place than sitting at the defendant's table facing such overwhelming authority. The prosecutor for the human side argued that their marriage was a sham designed to give Lyra access to human space, while providing Marcus with illegal alien technology. The Altarian representative claimed that Lyra had dishonored her species by bonding with an inferior life form and should be stripped of citizenship. When Marcus was called to testify, he stood on shaking legs and faced the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. These beings held the power to destroy everything he and Lyra had built together. "Your Honor," he began, his voice steadier than he felt, "I never asked to inherit a wife. The whole concept seemed wrong to me from the beginning. But over the past months, I've learned something important about what makes humanity special in this galaxy." The lead judge, an elderly being from a species Marcus didn't recognize, gestured for him to continue. "We don't judge people by their species or their technology or their natural advantages. We judge them by their choices and their character. Lyra chose to stand with me in battle when she could have stayed safe. She chose to risk her life to protect human colonies from the Vex. Most importantly, she chose to love me not because law required it, but because she wanted to." Marcus turned to look at Lyra, drawing strength from her violet eyes. "Every species in this galaxy seems to think that relationships should be based on genetic compatibility or political advantage or technological benefit. But humans believe in something different. We believe that love should be freely given and freely received. We believe that families are built by choice, not by biology." He faced the tribunal again with growing confidence. "You can dissolve our marriage if you want. You can exile us both from our home worlds. But you cannot change the fact that we chose each other. And that choice, that human idea of love based on respect and partnership rather than obligation, is spreading throughout the galaxy, whether you like it or not." The chamber was silent for a long moment before Lyra stood to address the tribunal. "I renounce my inherited bond to Marcus Reed," she said clearly. "I dissolve all legal obligations placed upon me by Altarian law, and I freely choose to marry this human because he has shown me that true strength comes from the courage to love without reservation." The judges deliberated for hours while Marcus and Lyra waited in a small chamber adjacent to the main hall. When they were finally called back, the lead judge's expression was unreadable. "This tribunal finds that the original inheritance bond is dissolved," the judge announced. "However, we also recognize the right of both parties to form new legal partnerships based on mutual consent. The marriage of Marcus Reed and Lyra Vell is hereby recognized as valid under Federation law." The gallery erupted in surprised chatter, while Marcus felt relief flood through him. But the judge wasn't finished speaking. "Furthermore, this tribunal recommends that the Federation Council review current laws regarding interspecies relationships. The evidence presented suggests that human concepts of chosen family and love-based partnerships offer benefits that traditional arrangements do not provide." 6 months later, Marcus and Lyra stood together in a garden on Earth, surrounded by friends from both their species. The wedding ceremony combined human and Altarian traditions in ways that would have seemed impossible a year earlier. Alex Torres was honored as a friend whose sacrifice had brought them together, but their love belonged entirely to themselves. As they exchanged vows, Marcus thought about how much his life had changed since that day he received the inheritance notification. He had gained not just a wife, but a partner who challenged him to be better than he thought possible. Together they had proven that humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy wasn't superior technology or military might, but the revolutionary idea that relationships should be built on choice rather than obligation. The ceremony concluded with Lyra's clan formally accepting Marcus as family, while his human friends welcomed her as one of their own. It was a small beginning, but throughout the galaxy other couples were following their example and choosing love over law. The human way of doing impossible things was spreading among the stars, one relationship at a time.